Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Chris. My partner Ange and I are full-time living out of this Jeep behind me as we tour around Australia, and we want to carry that on for overlanding in other countries around the world. We have been full-time in this vehicle for the past 10 months, and last week I went over all of the reasons why the four-door Jeep Wrangler makes an awesome full-time touring vehicle. Today I want to go over a lot of the reasons why it does not. Alright, so on to my first point is its petrol motor. Now you can get a diesel version of the Jeep. They are a little bit harder to come by, and from the people I've heard who have owned them, I haven't heard the greatest things about the reliability of that motor, but I'm sure that's not completely across the board. But in keeping it with what we know, this is the 3.6 litre V6 Pentastar motor, and that is one of, in my opinion, the big cons, especially in Australia, is the fact that A, it is not diesel, so it does not have the large quantity of torque that is helpful in a four-wheel drive, but it is also not very economical. Now when you start putting more and more weight, when you lift it up and make it less aerodynamic, and when you put big tires like these 37s, that is then compounded to be less and less economical. We knew this going into it, but it is something that you should be aware of. There are much more economical overlanders, and when you're full-time, that is a really big deal because you start really seeing these costs climbing. Secondly, the Jeep itself, especially here in Australia, has quite a low GVM for the class standard. Now that means you can only put so much weight on that vehicle before it either becomes A, dangerous and you have to make some modifications to the brakes and the suspension like we have, and B, potentially illegal, and then it can become quite expensive and difficult to get re-engineered so that you are legal on the road, especially here in Australia. So that is something to be aware of. The Jeep Wrangler also has a relatively low tow capacity, so it's something to be aware of. If you plan on towing, there are certainly better vehicles out there for doing so. Now, sort of in relation to that petrol motor, is the Jeep has a very low driving range. Now that is a really big deal when you're going down far remote tracks. We've even noticed in some parts of Australia that roadhouses don't even have petrol, they only have diesel because it is the most common fuel in the outback. Now it's never been a complete deal breaker for us, but it does mean we've had to at times carry 3 20-litre jerry cans. So that not only increases our overall weight, but also takes up valuable space. So that is one of our main disadvantages in comparison to other overlanding and touring rigs, is that lower driving range. It has an 80-litre petrol tank, and one of the modifications we would like to make in the future is getting an extended long-range fuel tank put in as well, but then we're also adding weight and cost. Now in the last video I spoke about how its compact size was a real benefit, but that is actually a bit of a double-edged sword, to the point where Ange and I have literally used every possible square inch of space in this Jeep for all of our personal belongings like clothing, for camping equipment, and for hobbies like spearfishing and whatnot. We are literally out of space. So that has started to prove a bit of an issue for us. We cannot expand our range of hobbies, and it also means we've removed the back seat, so we cannot carry passengers. And it also means, which is pretty much our largest con now, is that we cannot extend our family from 2 to potentially 3. We could, but it would mean we'd have to make huge sacrifices in what we're carrying. So, because of the fact that we're sort of running out of space, and if we do want to extend the family, we're kind of out of room and would have to make some big adjustments, it really means, in our opinion, the only way we could really do it would be either tow a trailer or a small little camper setup, and then we're going on with that lower GVM and lower tow capacity. So it all starts to really merge into something where we're like, okay, so this platform, these are the limitations of it now for our full-time touring setup. Slowly, that's it. And finally, it has quite a small cockpit. I'm quite a large guy, and I find that the Jeep cockpit is quite limited in space, especially the fact that we have stuff behind the driver and passenger seat. It means that I can't fully recline or anything like that. I've got enough leg room, but it's more space between myself and the wheel I find very compact. Be fine if I was a bit smaller. I do have enough headroom, but it does after a while become a little bit claustrophobic. One way I've helped alleviate that is that I modified the freedom panels above to be more like a skylight. Having that light coming in makes the cockpit feel a bit roomier. The other thing you'll know is that the Jeep has an incredibly narrow windscreen. So you actually have a very limited field of view. And if you get into other larger 4x4s, you can really notice that difference and that limited amount of vision that you get from it. Overall, that makes it feel a little bit limited in comparison to other four-wheel drives, and for me personally that is a bit of a con, and that limited amount of cockpit driving space. That sort of wraps it up for the reasons why I don't think the Jeep Wrangler makes the perfect overlanding platform, but then it's very, very difficult, as you know, to choose a vehicle that does tick all the boxes. Probably impossible, if you will. I'm sure a lot of you were expecting me to talk about the unreliability of the Jeep. We've only been going for 10 months full-time now, but we've done some ridiculous things in this vehicle. We've gone ridiculously remote, always solo on our own, and it has always gotten us through. We did break down on the Gib River Road due to what I believe is a limitation in the engine, which was a plastic oil cooler. Now, I'm no engineer, so I can't fully comment on what could have been designed better, but I feel like somewhere where there is a huge amount of heat and vibration, that integral component to the engine should not be plastic, but I could be wrong. That's the only thing that held us back on this vehicle. The only other issue we had was due to the fact that I'm running really large 37-inch tires, nothing to do with Jeep at all. So we know of a large quantity of other Jeepers who really also stand by the reliability of the platform. But we've also spoken to others that have absolute horror stories about the Jeep. But in our opinion, that's the same with every make and model four-wheel drive out there. You get the horror stories, and then you get the stories from people that say that it's taken them to the moon and back, sort of thing. So we think the reliability of the Jeep is not a con at all. I hope you got something out of the video, guys. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button if you want to see some of our touring around Australia and our adventures, and appreciate any comments that you put with your opinions. Cheers.